We all know the saying, if you want to make money, sell health, wealth, or relationships. And lucky for you guys, you are in the healthcare industry, so you can make a lot of money. Now, of course, there is an idealistic point of view where you definitely want to help treat more people and help them lead better lives. But of course, as a clinic owner, you are still running a business. And part of business is marketing and sales. What we're going to go through today is really understanding how to sell your treatments effectively. Okay. One of the things is if you don't know how to communicate with your target audience specifically, it will be very hard for you to keep your calendar full outside of referrals, that is. Okay. I know a lot of clinics do live off of referrals, but the problem is you're depending on someone else to fund your business. And if you want to be independent, you have to figure out your own marketing and sales in order to attract more patients. So today we're going to go over some common mistakes that I'm seeing when it comes to marketing. We're going to talk about pain segments, and then we're going to talk about the decision-making process of how you actually sell these treatments. Common mistakes. So when it comes to common mistakes, you guys are not marketers, which is totally okay, right? But there has to be a psychological factor when it comes to marketing and advertising. Now, the biggest mistake that I see clinics making is they try to have a catch-all approach. So for example, if you are a neurofeedback clinic, you're trying to say, hey, rewire the brain. If you are a chiropractor, you are saying fix back pain or fix pain. If you are a physiotherapist, you're talking about feel mobile again. But we have to get a lot more specific than that. And the reason for this is because there is so much stuff out there on social media right now, and even the internet, that it's becoming harder for the consumer to understand what decision they should be making. Because there's so many options available, every single market is saturated. So you have to figure out a way to stand out and stand out in front of them and basically offer them a solution to the problem they're experiencing right now. Once you're able to do this, not only will you get better marketing results, but you'll actually get more patient starts because of how you framed the message at the start. Okay. So the number one mistake that I see is, let's go common mistakes, is going too broad. The thing is, yes, your service can help everyone, but if you're talking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. Okay. The second mistake is confusion. And it stems off of this part here, which is going too broad, is if someone wants to cut something, they're going to use a knife, right? But if you give them several different options, do you want to use a knife? Do you want to use a scissor? Do you want to use a lawnmower? They can use all those things, but you have to specify the use case for each one of those. And this is one of the things that we're going to talk about, how to avoid confusion. And finally, trust. Now, if you're going too broad, if you're causing confusion, there is no trust because you don't help with anything specifically, right? What we want to always do is have one problem to one solution. There are actually a lot of apps out there that solve one problem only. And those apps do huge numbers. Okay? So for example, if we look at Zoom, all it does is video conferencing. If we look at Calendly, all it does is schedule, right? One problem, one solution. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's move on to pain segments. Pain segments. All right. Pain segments are segments within your target audience that you can specifically identify and target. So let's do a little visual here. So let's say you have a service. Okay. Service or treatment. That service can help with A, it can help with B, it can help with C, it can help with D. Great. Now, who are the people that are in A? B, person 1, person 2. Who are the people that are in B? Person 3, person 4. What about C? Maybe just one person 5. And then D, maybe another person 6. Right? Now let's go over here, for example, and let's just do person 7 falls under category A. Now, your service is able to help 3 people here. So we identify as this service segment as having the most affinity in the market. This is your service, this is your pain segment, and these are your audience segments. Market affinity is what people want right now, what they need the most right now. And because you are a clinic, you already know there is a factor of seasonality. So in order to keep your clinic afloat, you want to make sure that you are tapping into the seasonality and what people want during each of those seasons. That's how you maintain market affinity. What's the strongest in the market right now? So let's look at a live example. So let's talk about neurofeedback. There is a huge potential for this treatment. It's an advanced treatment, but there's a huge need for it in the market, all right? So neurofeedback helps with ADHD, can help with cognition and brain fog. It can help with cognitive decline. Let me redo that. And trauma, PTSD. Okay. Here we have our pain segments. This service helps with ADHD, cognition, cognitive decline, trauma, PTSD. Now let's go into our audience segments. Who is experiencing problems with ADHD? Be parents who have kids with ADHD. With kids with ADHD. ADHD. Could even be adults. Cognition, brain fog. Here we have maybe execs, athletes, right? High performers. They fall into the same category. Performers, right? Cognitive decline, huge aging population. Some have the onset of dementia, some have Alzheimer's. I know neurofeedback doesn't help with Alzheimer's, but you get what I'm trying to do. Aging population. This market is a little bit harder to target with this newer advanced technology because they're obviously a little bit older school. So there is a huge sales cycle in order to educate them and get them to trust this technology. Trauma PTSD. This is good for first responders, veterans. And other sufferers of trauma and PTSD. Now, what I would look at is great, it can help with all of these things, right? But for trauma and PTSD, we have TMS, we have ketamine, right? For cognition and brain fog, we have these apps, we have supplements. And here, what we're competing with is trust. So as of now, ADHD has the strongest market affinity because we are competing with prescriptions. And nobody wants to put their kid on or themselves on prescription, right? So we have identified that this would be our pain segment that would help us get the most bang for our buck. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So now we have, let's just do, for example, parents with kids who have ADHD. Great. So this is our audience segment, right? Audience segment. And this up here is our pain segment. All right. In our audience segments, what are these people experiencing? Where is the pain coming in from? Maybe they have a chaotic home. Maybe they are getting calls from schools. Maybe they're having trouble with homework. Maybe they're having bedtime troubles. They can't get their kids to sleep. Now, these are very powerful pain points, right? ADHD is great. That's a big pain point, but these are very powerful pain points. Now, if we can talk to parents and say, hey, do you have a chaotic home? Do you want a calmer home? Do you want less school calls? Do you want easier homework sessions? Better sleep? They would answer yes. This is the pain we are solving for. We're not solving necessarily for ADHD. We're solving for these pain points that the end user or the patient would be experiencing. Okay. So how do you get people to actually make a decision? So these pain points here, they are emotional pain points. And people first make decisions with emotions and then they justify it with logic. So let's go into decision making. Decision. Spell that right. Decision making. All right. So like I said, people make emotional first and then they justify it with logic. Okay. So when we talk about these pain points, we're talking about the emotional stuff first. And if we include them in our advertising or our marketing, we pique that interest right off the top. So this is what the decision-making process would look like. You have an emotional trigger, emotional trigger, right? Again, so something like this: chaotic home, calls from school, homework troubles. Offer a solution. Talk about neurofeedback. It's drug-free, non-invasive neurofeedback. And then you have the education part. Education part of how it works, let's say. Works. And then finally, the trust. Testimonials, studies, whatever. If you can optimize your marketing for this, these three become easier. And this is what we really focus on, because this here, this emotional trigger, is what drives awareness. These two here, educate, and obviously this one here, builds trust. What we talked about right now was primarily this here, this trigger. How do you get people in? How do you get them interested? And earlier I talked about framing. So in this part here, if you can get them emotionally, this back end stuff becomes a lot easier. And what happens is, because you are promoting a solution, one solution to one problem, your lead quality is going to be higher, because people already know why they're coming in, right? There is no confusion. They understand that they want a transformation. They're a little bit more educated on how this transformation works, and they've seen results or case studies of this working for other people. Once you build all this out, this is what we marketers call the user journey. So remember that. Let's sum up a little bit. When we are promoting anything, when we are promoting anything, we want to start off by understanding our pain segments. Okay. So it starts off with the service, goes into the pain segments, which are essentially the different solutions that treatment offers. Then we go into audience segments, who are experiencing this pain. Then we go into emotional pain segments. This here, like I said, is going to be powerful when you are advertising.